I was gonna say, did you put a
Oh, got a terrible glare. You're both so orange. Hi, everyone. My name is Lynn, and I'm a student services assistant at East Los Angeles College, and I'm the coordinator for a center called One Zone. It's an LGBTQ support and retention center. Right now we're in this virtual world, so I've been doing stuff like this where I'm reading. This is the book I'm going to be reading from. It's called Sister Outsider by Audre Lorde. And this is my partner, Anne. Oh, she has a coloring book.
I'm gonna color.
It's like pocket size. It's one that we've both taken it on airplanes before that size. And she's also going to read from a book called, I don't know what.
That's a good title.
Oh, it's a book by Jewelle Gomez called 43 Septembers. Is that right?
Yes,
Jewelle
it's a
Gomez.
collection of essays. She's a queer woman, a Black woman of color. Black woman of color.
Let's turn our volume up so everyone can hear us. Okay, so a couple of things I wanted to share with you. The census. You do still have time to complete the census, but I believe tomorrow is the last day, the 30th, the end of the month for September. So in particular, if you're in an area, unincorporated areas like Boyle Heights, it's super important that you do the census. You get your neighbors to do the census, your family to do the census. The census is something that helps decide money for areas like for school, for road repair. So it's really super important that people participate. Not just that, but we want everybody to be counted. That I think is really important. Because I don't know if you've ever had a chance to do your ancestry, but you can look back on the census and see information about your people. Well, imagine years from now, people are looking back at the census and seeing information about you.
100 years from now.
So yeah, do the census. And the other thing is voting. If you haven't registered to vote, you do still have time to register to vote for the state of California. And of course, you know, we're a mail-in ballot state, thanks to our lovely Governor, Mr. Newsom. And you don't have to panic or worry about mailing in because, of course, everyone's talking about the USPS system is backed up or slow, or maybe they're trying to thwart the mail-in ballots. You can always drop off your ballot at your polling place. All libraries have the polling place drop-off box. At least I know our local library has one. And all 9 colleges for the LACCD, so Harbor College, Southwest College, East Los Angeles College, Trade Tech College, Pierce College, Valley College, Mission, West LA College, all will have drop-off boxes. For East Los Angeles College, the ballot drop-off box, it's a locked box. It clearly says ballot box and it's locked. It's not anything that the school controls. It's, you know, the people that do the ballots come and collect them.
And you don't have to.
Registrar Recorder's Office.
It's already, postage is paid on it already.
Yeah, you don't need a stamp if you do decide to put it in the mail. But I just want to say that the box for East Los Angeles College is by Student Services. So if you're at the school and you're standing at the front of the college on Cesar Chavez, you would just look to your left toward the Student Services building, and you'll see it right outside of the main gates of the Student Services Division building, which is E1 if you don't know. But if you can't find it, you can always contact the Sheriff's Office. They're 323-265-8800. They're at campus 24/7. So yeah, you can't find where the ATM is, or you need help accessing the ATM, which I know is something that is on campus, but you don't have to go to campus to use the ATM. But if you want to use the drop-off box and you can't find it, it's supposed to be outside of Student Services, but if you have trouble, you can always contact the Sheriff's Office.
265-8800.
Yes. And I wanted to mention, if you are, or you know someone who is having food insecurity, Then Mi Centro in Boyle Heights, they're the LGBTQ Center for Boyle Heights. They're affiliated with the main branch in West Hollywood. They do food giveaways every Friday. It's called the Mi Centro Pantry. It's an LGBTQ pantry, but I'm certain even if you're not LGBTQ, they would serve you. They are a small organization. You would just need to contact them and get on their list. They're in Boyle Heights. In the Monterey Park, East LA area, the Garage Board Shop, they're on Atlantic. They also do food giveaways every week. And if you've ever been nearby, you've seen the long line outside of their place on Atlantic. It's also a safe space if you need some place to access a computer or study space. They are open and provide that space, as well as a safe place to skate. So if you skateboard, no, but Google does. The Garage Board Shop, they're in East LA. They do food giveaways, and they have safe space for students to study and equipment and tutors. Yeah, voting, census, food. If you're a male and you're struggling with a place to live and you're under 26, so up to 26 years of age, East Los Angeles College and the Student Health Center, they've partnered with an organization to provide temporary housing to male students. They are taking applications. It's available on the Student Health Center website. So you just go to elac.edu and look for the Student Health Center on there. By the way, that reminds me that all of the services, even though the campus is closed, everything is online. That includes the health center. The health center is not open, but our contractor is providing services down the street on Atlantic. They're called Via Care. And if you call the number for the Student Health Center, you are routed not to our campus, but to the Via Care on Atlantic. I want to say it's before Beverly. Can't remember the exact cross street, but you can go there and access services. So you need a prescription, you have an infection, something's going on, you want to find out, you just need an exam, you think you have COVID. They are doing corona testing as well for students. It's a sliding scale, of course. It's based on what you can pay or cannot pay. I think that's all the announcements I had. I feel like I shared a lot already, so I'm going to read a little bit from the book. Woo, where's the camera? Sister Outsider by Audre Lorde, and it's a collection of poems and short stories that she had the idea for a book, and she thought that she couldn't write a book. When someone said to her, "You already have a book. You have poems. You have short stories. We just need to put them together and you have a book." And she was like, mind blown. I can write a book. Anyway, Audre Lorde, she grew up in the 1930s in Harlem. She earned a master's degree in library science from Columbia University. She's a National Endowment of the Arts grant for poetry, New York State's Poet Laureate from 91 to 93. And she wrote 12 books, including Zami, A New Spelling of My Name. Do you hear that? We hear somebody's TV.
It's probably an emergency.
And it says she died of cancer at the age of 58 in 1992. Lesbian poet and feminist writer. So I'm on page 36, and it says poetry is not a luxury. And that's where I'm going to begin. Thank you for being here today. Quote, "The quality of light by which we scrutinize our lives has direct bearing upon the product which we live, and upon the changes which we hope to bring about throughout our lives. It is within this light that we form those ideas by which we pursue our magic and make it realized. This is poetry as illumination, for it is through poetry that we give name to those ideas which are, until the poem, nameless and formless, about to be birthed, but already felt. that distillation of experience from which true poetry springs birth, thought as dreams births concepts, as feeling births ideas, as knowledge births understanding. As we learn to bear the intimacy of scrutiny and to flourish within it, as we learn to use the products of that scrutiny for power within our living, those fears which rule our lives and form our silences begin to lose their control over us. For each of us as women, there is a dark place within where hidden and growing our true spirit rises, beautiful and tough as chestnut against our nightmare of weakness. These places of possibility within ourselves are dark because they are ancient and hidden. They have survived and grown strong through that darkness. Within these deep places, each one of us holds an incredible reserve of creativity and power, of unexamined and unrecorded emotion and feeling. The woman's place of power within each of us is in neither white nor surface. It is dark, it is ancient, it is deep. When we view living, it is the European mode only as a problem to be solved. We rely solely upon our ideas to make us free, for these were what the white fathers told us were precious. But as we come more into touch with our own ancient non-European consciousness of living as a situation to be experienced and interacted with, we learn more and more to cherish our feelings and to respect those hidden sources of our power from where true knowledge and therefore lasting action comes. At this point in time, I believe that every woman carries within ourselves the possibility for fusion of these two approaches so necessary for survival, and we come closest to this combination in our poetry. I speak here of poetry as a revelatory distillation of experience, not the sterile wordplay that too often is the white fathers distorted the word poetry to mean, in order to cover a desperate wish for imagination without insight. For women, then, poetry is not a luxury. It is a vital necessity of our existence. It forms the quality of the light within which we predicate our hopes and dreams toward survival and change, first made into language, then into ideas, then into more tangible action. Poetry is the way we help give name to the nameless so it can be thought. The farthest horizons of our hopes and fears are cobbled by our poems, carved from the rock experiences of our daily lives. As they become known to and accepted by us, our feelings and the honest exploration of them become sanctuaries and spawning grounds for the most radical and daring of ideas. They become a safe house for that difference so necessary to change and the conceptualization of any meaningful action. Right now, I could name at least 10 ideas I would have found intolerable or incomprehensible and frightening, except as they came after dreams and poems. This is not idle fantasy, but a disciplined attention to the true meaning of "it feels right to me." We can train ourselves to respect our feelings and to transpose them into language so that they can be shared. And where that language does not yet exist, it is our poetry which helps to fashion it. Poetry is not only dream and vision, it is the skeleton architecture of our lives. It lays the foundations of a future, of change, a bridge across our fears of what has never been before. Possibility is neither forever nor instant. It is not easy to sustain belief in its efficiency. We can sometimes work long and hard to establish one beachhead of real resistance to the deaths we expect to live, only to have that beachhead assaulted or threatened by those canards we have socialized to fear, or by the withdrawal of those approvals that we have been warned to seek for safety. Women see ourselves diminished or softened by the falsely benign accusations of childness, of non-universality, of changeability, of sexuality. And who asks the question, am I altering your aura, your ideas, your dreams? Or am I merely moving you to temporary and reactive action? And even though the latter is no mean task, it is one that must be seen within the context of a need for true alteration of the very foundation of our lives. The white fathers told us, I think, therefore I am. The black mother within us, each of us, the poet, whispers in our dreams, I feel, therefore I can be free. Poetry coins the language to express and charter this revolutionary demand, the implementation of that freedom. However, experience has taught us that action in the now is also necessary, always. Our children cannot dream unless they live. They cannot live unless they are nourished. And who else will feed them the real food without which their dreams will be no different from ours? If you want us to change the world someday, we at least have to live long enough to grow up, shouts the child. Sometimes we drug ourselves with dreams of new ideas. The head will save us. The brain alone will set us free. But there are no new ideas still waiting in the wings to save us, women, as human. There are only old and forgotten ones, new combinations and extrapolations and recognitions from within ourselves, along with the renewed courage to try them out. And we must constantly encourage ourselves and each other to attempt the heretical actions that our dreams imply, and so many of our old ideas disparage. In the forefront of our move toward change, there is only poetry to hint at possibility made real. Our poems formulate the implications of ourselves, what we feel within and dare make real or bring action into accordance with, our fears, our hopes, our most cherished terrors. For within living structures defined by profit, by linear power, by institutional dehumanization, our feelings were not meant to survive, kept around as unavoidable adjuncts or pleasant pastimes. Feelings were expected to kneel to thought as women were expected to kneel to men. But women have survived as poets, and there are no new pains. We have felt them all, have hidden our power. They surface in our dreams, and it is our dreams that point the way to freedom. Those dreams are made realizable through our poems that give us the strength and courage to see, to feel, to speak, to dare. If what we need to dream, to move our spirits more deeply and directly toward and through promise is discounted as luxury, then we give up the core, the fountain of our power, our womanness. We give up the future of our worlds. For there are no new ideas. There are only new ways of making them felt, of examining what those ideas feel like being lived on Sunday morning at 7 a.m., after brunch, during wild love, making war, giving birth, mourning our dead, while we suffer the old longings, battle the old warnings, and fear being silent and impotent and alone, while we taste new possibilities and strengths.
Wow.
Audre Lorde just has a way of cutting through everything and making you feel whatever it is. Jeez, babe.
I know.
You're just dropping everything over there. So I just wanted to let you know that this was first published in from Black Mother Woman, and it was in 1973. It was from Collected and Chosen Poems, Old and New, a magazine, Chrysalis, A Female Culture. Okay, so that's Audre Lorde, and I think that's where I'm going to stop, because that was the complete essay. I don't want to start another one. She's too much to continue reading. You got to really digest what you just read, because that was intense.
Well, I was thinking maybe to read a couple of poems from this collection of poetry of hers called The Black Unicorn.
Oh, a new book we got.
Ms. Audre Lorde, yes. This was written in doggone it. These pages don't want to turn. Copyright 1978, just to give you an idea of when she wrote it. I'll just read a couple of these. This first poem is entitled The Black Unicorn. The black unicorn is greedy. The black unicorn is impatient. The black unicorn was mistaken for a shadow or symbol and taken through a cold country where the mist painted mockeries of my fury. It is not on her lap where the horn rests, but deep in her moon pit, growing. The black unicorn is restless. The black unicorn is unrelenting. The black unicorn is not free. There's another one called A Woman Speaks. Moon marked and touched by sun, my magic is unwritten, but when the sea turns back, it will leave my shape behind. I seek no favor, untouched by blood, unrelenting as the curse of love, permanent as my errors or my pride. I do not mix love with pity, nor hate with scorn. And if you would know me, look into the entrails of Uranus, where the restless oceans pound. I do not dwell within my birth nor my divinities, who am ageless and half grown and still seeking my sisters, witches and Dahomey, wear me inside their coiled cloths, as our mothers did, mourning. I have been woman for a long time. Beware my smile. I am treacherous with old magic, and the noon's new fury with all your wide futures promised. I am woman and not white. One more. From the house of Yemanja. My mother had two faces and a frying pot where she cooked up her daughters into girls. Before she fixed our dinner, my mother had two faces and a broken pot where she hid out a perfect daughter who was not me. And I am the sun and moon and hungry and forever hungry for her eyes. I bear two women upon my back, one dark and rich and hidden in the ivory hungers of the other mother. Pale as a witch, yet steady and familiar, brings me bread and terror in my sleep. Her breasts are huge, exciting anchors in the midnight storm. All this has been before in my mother's bed. Time has no sense. I have no brothers, and my sisters are cruel. Mother, I need. Mother, I need. Mother, I need your blackness now, as the August earth needs rain. I am the sun and moon, and forever hungry, the sharpened edge where day and night shall meet and not be one. I'm sorry. Did I already say this one? A book of essays by Jewelle Gomez. I think it's from like 1982. Okay, this one is titled From the Journals. And it's a picture of her mom, Grace. Today, October 28th, 1982. Today I was unpacking boxes in my new workroom, in my life with my new lover, still not at ease with the newness of the title lover. I'd never moved my home to be with a woman, and even though I say my motivation is to save money while I take a year off to write, I know that the bigger part is I want to try the grand experiment, to live with someone and try to make a home. Marianne, Sandra, Devine have gone home after their valiant struggle of 4 flights of stairs with my stuff. Bless their hearts. I'm surprised to find my searching among all the things that have gone so right for something to be wrong. Maybe the room would be too small, or my lover's taste in food too exotic for my meager talents, or whatever small detail among the hundreds there might be. Under scrutiny, the room remains bright and large. There seems to be no frightening shadows. I put away cotton tops and shorts that look frivolous as only summer clothes can in the face of winter. I opened the drawer of a small dresser, making room for carefully matched and folded socks. Alone at the bottom of the drawer was a letter sent to me 11 years before by Ma, my great-grandmother. I'm sorry, she was her great-grandmother, not her mother. And I'd left home and moved to New York City. She'd raised me from the age of 8 until I graduated from college. As a kid, I'd never thought living with my great-grandmother was an exceptional situation. After all, I had a mother and stepfather and a father and 2 stepmothers, all simultaneously. During my childhood, Ma, named Gracias, called Grace, sporadically revealed details of her own childhood, usually while combing my hair into endless thick rows of braids. It seemed so mythological that I didn't really believe her until I grew up. She'd been born on an Indian reservation in Iowa. Her parents, Sarah and Archibald, sportsmen, were both half black, half Iowa. As Iowa? Native American. She moved east with her mother after her father died, kicked by a horse he was training. Later came half-sisters Myrtle, whose husband was the first black police officer I ever met, and Sarah, whom I met when I was about 8, who looked about 200 years old to me. I was fascinated by the years that seemed to weigh down her house, but not on her player piano. Edith, a naval officer, was a dashing figure to me when she visited, gleaming with wavy white hair and brass buttons, making endless phone calls. Effie was the sister I never met, but Ma's pictures and stories of her stayed with me through my childhood, especially Ma's collection of hearing Effie call out her name one day when she was all alone in the house. When Ma telephoned Effie, she was told her sister had just died. I always assumed Effie was hovering somewhere nearby. I knew others in her family. I knew few others in her family, except a wonderful grandniece and the delightful name of Lovey Lovett. Grace relocated to Cambridge, was married off at the age of 14 to John Mirandus, who was half black and half Wampanoag. She used to say the union was arranged because she was chronically ill. Her mother, not expecting to live long, was making sure there would be someone to pay for the burial. She never talked much about her daughter, about her marriage, except when she'd remark with a smile, outlived him by 30, or 30 or 40 years, or 35 or 40 as the years passed. I never really got much sense of what she would call her personal life. The smile at her widowhood seemed as much as she had to say about the marriage. She worked all of her life in factories and other places like that, leaving her daughter Lydia to be raised in part by her own mother, Sarah. I know that men did try to keep company with her when we lived together. She must have been in her 60s, but Louis, who drove a shoe truck, would arrive faithfully with his smelly cigars and boxes of shoes and stay as long as she'd allow. And Clarence, somewhat older, genteel, and West Indian, would take us to the fair every summer and sometimes out to dinner. Then there was the white man, John, who I can only vaguely remember, probably because Grace forbade him coming to visit her during the day, saying she wouldn't have the neighbors seeing a white man coming and going in her house. None of these relationships felt like romances, although I sensed that Louis, Clarence, and John held out hopes. Grace seemed to enjoy their attentions and conversation for limited periods of time. Then she'd end the visit with some sort of disagreement. Her implacable gaze or disdainful retort guaranteed their speedy exit. It always felt like a game to me, something she did unknowingly but irresistibly. I was grateful the behavior was reserved for them and mystified at why they put up with it. It was at great odds with the exuberance that Nana, her daughter Lydia, got from the company she kept. Nana dated a succession of men, and what with wonderful names like Buster and Hank. She stayed out late, played show tunes loudly on her hi-fi. That's old school turntable. She played show tunes loudly on her hi-fi and spent summers in Provincetown. Really nice. After Ma retired from the piano factory, her life became full of keeping up with me as I managed high school and college. She sent me off to mass every Sunday, although she herself rarely went. She made sure that we got to the annual horticultural hall rummage sale early enough to buy me clothes for school, ensured that Lydia, my mother Dolores, and I never forgot each other's birthdays, and holiday visits went smoothly, that we remained a family. And she went to Elks meetings and bingo games every week on schedule. Today, the end of her life, Toward the end of her life, her eyesight was ruined by glaucoma, interrupting the pleasure she cherished. Sorry, I was trying to adjust this. Toward the end of her life, her eyesight was ruined by glaucoma, interrupting the pleasure she cherished. Reading everything from historical novels to dime store trash, crocheting endlessly, and watching her favorite television programs, Name That Tune, Perry Mason, Ed Sullivan, Route 66. That was one of my favorites too. And Star Trek. All right. Faithfully, no wonder she was so cool. Faithfully, she peered at the screen, listening and asking me who was doing what to whom. Sometimes I was impatient with her questions. Her vulnerability frightened me. When I left home in 1971, thinking I was finally grown, her health collapsed, as if her responsibility for me had been the one strand holding everything in her life together. The letter in my drawer was written in the halting, careful penmanship created by her failing sight. It was plaintive and cheerful at the same time. I couldn't look at the yellowing paper long enough without crying. The last time I saw Ma at the hospital, she was alert, talking, laughing, and holding my hand like she'd done when I was a child. I almost convinced myself she would get better and go home again. Every week I take a late night Greyhound from the Port Authority to see her. And Lydia and I didn't let her know I'd lost the job I'd so proudly left home for. So I told her about the television stars I saw in my Upper West Side neighborhood and talked about my apartment and Jim, the boy I'd been dating the last 2 years of college. Just before I left the hospital, she asked if I were going to marry him. She could never know how complex a question she'd raised. Jim and I had parted very shortly after my move to New York. But even that was not the answer. She'd never known about the girl whom I'd loved before Jim. Hers was a simple question, but so out of the context of my real life, or what I imagined my real life would be. She never pushed me toward marriage, even when teachers told her it was impractical to think of sending a poor colored girl to college. She was determined I'd be able to take care of myself, as all the women in the family had done. Ma worked and survived alone, always daring the men in her life to presume they could make her happier than she'd made herself. Maybe somewhere she'd felt cheated, but she convinced me. Once I passed through the adolescent novelty of living out the impassioned lyrics to blues songs, the idea of waiting for my man set my teeth on edge. I could hardly bear to wait for a bus, and neither could she. I can still see Madison Park, where she'd walked together. Just trying to let that pass.
You'd think we lived right on the boulevard.
Is it going somewhere or is it just sitting there? Sorry. I'm just going to continue. I can still see Madison Park, where we'd walked together to get to the shopping district under the Washington Street elevated trains. Wow, they're no longer there. The walk was much better and cheaper than standing at the corner bus stop, shifting from one foot to the other, trying to keep the sun out of our eyes. I would talk about movies and pick dandelions. She'd tell me how they used to eat those greens, not walk on them, and tantalize me with tales of what snacks we'd have once the shopping was done. We were always moving forward. I learned to imitate her movement, forthright and determined, yet smooth. Her walk, her temperament, her care of me, all said she was a happy woman with her life as a woman alone with her child. Her walk, her temperament, her care of me, all said she was a woman happy with her life as a woman alone with her child. And that's what I see for myself. For her, it was a choice not consciously made. She would never have called it a lifestyle. She simply tried to keep us safe. When she couldn't watch me over me anymore, she wanted reassurance that I would have security. So instead of asking if I had learned well from her example, she wanted to know if I was going to marry Jim. Jim was now only a snapshot in my scrapbook, but I answered yes, so she could sleep. She smiled. We held hands. I put the letter away back in the drawer. As safe a place as any in the madness of moving, I placed my socks on top of it and left my new room, closing the door on the disarray. I went down the hall to my lover's room where she was taking a nap. I slipped in beside her under the comforter, and she reached out for me in her sleep. It's the fulfillment of a dream, but whose? Not one Grace ever articulated, not one Lydia expressed. I seemed to want someone who watched over me as Ma did, but how can I tell what that looks like as an adult, as a lesbian? It's like trying to pick a mate who looks like your favorite TV star. You can get the generalities, but what's behind the makeup? I'm not sweating it. I'm unpacked. I can only trust I learned Ma's lessons well. September 1988. I'm a little stunned each time I come upon that letter, as if I forget it exists until I'm moving. I don't remember putting it in the vanity. I brought home from Nana's house when she died this summer. The time I found it when I moved to the Bronx, I cried like Ma had just died. Now I don't know what to feel. If I let the tears in, I'm done for. That home didn't last long, 9 months. And the one after that only a minute longer. I really thought we would make it. We felt like two peas in a pod, as they say, except except maybe we were really two completely different varieties. Or maybe we were both too much the same, afraid of being dependent on each other and wanting at the same time someone to take care of us. I feel fooled by appearances, not that it was her fault. My eyesight just wasn't good enough to see the signs. Our friends kept calling us a royal meeting of the minds. That always sounded so majestic, enduring, like I'd finally found the TV star I wanted. A couple so grand the tabloids would talk, except what was behind the scene. Except what was behind the scene. A lot of pre-digested images of what it should be like, and not enough courage to make what it could be. I left and felt abandoned. Funny how having so many things in common now seems like the kiss of death, or more precisely, a trap. You think you know what the feelings look like, but when she expresses them, they seem reversed. Love looks like disinterest, fear looks like contempt, and not funhouse mirror. Being black, being ex-Catholics, being writers meant little in the face of my being more afraid of losing than of making myself heard. That first time I moved up to the Bronx, I could almost hear the drop of those of rose petals. The first time I moved up to the Bronx, I could almost hear the drop of rose petals. The next time I felt I was going into battle, but prepared. I think I looked I think I took too much of Ma with me. I couldn't be vulnerable and strong at the same time. I kept hearing Ma shouting at sweet, crusty Louis as the stench of his cigar floated behind him. To Hingham with you, she would shout in the quietest voice I ever heard. Hingham. I never heard that one before.
Either.
To Hingham with you. I'm gonna use that one. She could shout it. She could shout in the quietest voice I'd ever heard. I still wonder what she felt behind that inviolable voice. Why did she let him in and then chase him away? I shout in a quiet voice too, rather than saying what I need right out, and blame and I hide, and I blame and I hide. As I am writing this, I hate my love for letting me do it, just as I'm sure she hates me for letting her get away with being stubborn, unfaithful, and mean. I'm crying over this letter again, for Louis and his losing out, and for me and for Ma, even for her, still living in that fabulous apartment without me. Now that Ma and Nana are dead and I'm in this strange flat alone, I feel like Ma died all over again. I used to think of Ma and Nana as the two pillars at the entrance to the world. Ma was the bigger one, and Nana was the ornate one. But neither one of them managed to get the relationship thing down. And that's frightening. And what's frightening is that I can't really tell if they ever really wanted to or not. My mother Dolores is easy. She wants to be with a man who'll take care of her. Just be there and enjoy life as she like. She wants to be with a man who'll take care of her. Just be there and enjoy life as she likes to. Eating out, hanging out with friends, taking trips. When I was a kid and she swept into our house for visits with her handsome husband Peachy, I used to think she was so glamorous. Mhm. But her ambitions are kind of simple and sweetly old fashioned, really. Grace and Lydia were more complex. Who knows what either of them actually wanted? I used to believe that I knew them and that the knowing was a triumph. It made me special. But more and more, seems like the important thing was how trying to know them helps me come to know myself. How it shows me a way to communicate who I am to the people I care about and to the women I love. I alternate between desperately taking care of the one I love and trying to push her for not loving me well enough. Trying to punish her for not loving me well enough. And I don't know what well enough is. I used to think it was having someone to sit with quietly and go food shopping with, as if the simple pleasures Ma and I shared were both the form and content of happiness. There was a level of contentment that Ma had when it was her and me or her and Nana that was expressed in a laconic, low key way. Yet it was palpable. I always felt it. But that quiet was not merely the lack of talking. Her silence was full. I clearly have not learned how to read the silences. I mistake them for caring when they can be so many other things. Yeah. It's odd that this has actually been a very warm and loving 40th birthday in spite of this disaster. Serena and Carol made me a wonderful brunch in Cherry Grove. Amber and Esther took me to dinner at the most overpriced restaurant on the island, and Lucy and Diane prepared a fabulous dessert. Marianne and Sandra took me to dinner last night. We drank too much wine and celebrated being middle-aged and being friends for so long. When they brought me home, I was so depressed about being alone. I did the only thing I could think of that Nana might have done. I cut my hair off. It looks quite rakish. Stubby little dreadlocks poking about on my head, pointing to the sky. I was hanging out in the park half the afternoon before Sandra finally noticed that my hair was short. The look of shock on her face and the burst of laughter made the cut worth it. It reminded me of the time Nana had had a big date and tried to give herself a red tint. Why? Her hair came off so off-colored, she was frantic, trying to figure out what to do. She finally just went out with the brassy halo and dared anyone to say a word. At least that's what I assumed when she was, at least that's what I assumed she was feeling. Like I assumed she enjoyed not having a steady partner and assumed Ma enjoyed being alone. I used to call Ma every day from my job when I moved away. It was wonderful to try to have conversations just like we did when I was at home. I tell her about the studio and New York life. She was always so pleased and encouraging. I tried to write too, making my handwriting big so she could read it. Sometimes Nana would read my letters to her. It was hard for Ma to get down more than a few words, but I'm really happy she wrote this letter. It's something to hold on to when everything else gets so shaky. In it, she says she misses me. But I'm really happy she wrote this letter. It's something to hold on to when everything else gets so shaky. In it, she says she misses me. The end.
Wow. That was intense. I can't imagine it was her great grandmother.
Yeah.
Knowing your great grandmother.
Yeah, she had a great grandmother, her grandmother. And her what? Wait, so Grace was her great grandmother.
She talked about her mother, her grandmother.
Lydia
and
was her grandmother. I repeat it. Grace was her great grandmother. Lydia was her grandmother. And Dolores was her mom,
right,
her actual mother. But it's like they all had a part in bringing her up.
Yeah. A village of strong women.
And then she had her stepfather, and she had two stepmothers and her bio dad.
It's crazy. Thank you for reading that, Anne.
Thanks for letting me read.
Jewelle Gomez, 43 Septembers. Is that the title of the book? kind of hard to see because it's like rainbow colors. Her lovely picture on the back there. She's a great writer.
She doesn't have, she has a website. Oh, it's something like www.jewellegomez.com. If you want to look her up, her name is Jewelle and Gomez. It doesn't even have this book is so old it doesn't even have a .com. She's like 72 now.
Yeah, a national treasure.
Yeah.
We've had that book a long time. I wanted to, I forgot to mention when I was doing the opening of stuff that you can go to or information you may need. I'm going to share the screen. I wanted to go to the ELAC website and make sure you have the information. Sorry. Here it is. This ELAC town hall on microaggressions. It's tomorrow from 12 to 2. So I just wanted to make sure you guys are aware of that.
Racial microaggressions.
Yes. So as you can see on the screen, it's talking about a Zoom webinar. It's for students and employees. So if you're a student, it's definitely something for you. It's just giving the information, and the link to register is right here. Okay, so you just click on that and it asks you a few questions. Yeah. So I just wanted to make sure you had that, but it's just elac.edu. Let me stop sharing so I can go back to the screen. It's just elac.edu. It's right there on the homepage. If you just scroll down, it has the registration information for racial microaggressions. It's a series of webinars that East Los Angeles College is doing, and I believe tomorrow is the second one. So I'm really looking forward to it. So I wanted to make sure you had that information. Just go to elac.edu and scroll down, and you can register for the webinar. It's tomorrow on Zoom. Did you have something else you wanted to say?
Oh, tonight they're having that crazy, I don't know if I can watch it or not. The town meeting. It's town meeting? What do they call it? Between Trump and
Oh,
Can you say his
presidential
name?
debate.
Between Trump and Biden.
Yeah, the first presidential debate is tonight. I know our political science department is doing like guided watching sessions. You should be able to find that information on elac.edu as well, if you want to watch it with a group of students from political science
Well, that'd be cool.
and some instructors. I personally don't know if I'll watch it, but it is a good thing to participate in and be aware of, so you can see the train wreck that is Donald Trump. Our freaking president. It's hard to believe. Okay, I think that was all I had. Like,
Sorry, you made me think of that movie with Amy Schumer, Trainwreck.
yeah, Amy Schumer's hilarious.
Oh man.
I think that's all I had for today. Thank you for tuning in. I just want to give out my email. I don't think I did that. It's woodcl. It's woodcl. WOOD. C as in cat. L as in Larry. At ELAC. That's ELAC. ELAC.edu. So it's woodcl at ELAC.edu. And feel free to send me an email if you have a student that is struggling in the system, or if you need help navigating Connex Ed or Cranium Cafe, or getting around in the student information system, or perhaps you are constantly finding a "we're not open" sign on an office that you're trying to get to virtually. Perhaps I know the people and I can help you get around that door that's closed. We can email questions as well. It doesn't have to only be through that virtual platform.
Did you talk about that library?
Which
Do you
library?
remember it was a virtual library thing? Oh yeah. Is that something that you were gonna,
I'm not sure what you're talking about.
remember it was a virtual queer library, something? You were showing it to me yesterday.
Okay, if you go on Instagram, you can look for a queer library. Anyway, we will also have books available on campus once we're able to return, but since we're in this virtual world, we're doing everything online. Many of the books are available on the LA County website. They have an application that they use. It's called Libby. And then you're able to access, less than 24 hours, you would have your LA County library card so you can access resources. And then, of course, you also have the ELAC library. But thank you for tuning in today. I really appreciate you being here. It's Tuesday. Have a great Tuesday. Take care.
Thank you.